Good afternoon, my friends. Everybody keeps talking about the New England Patriots possibly making one more huge move before the season starts. But now this entire conversation around A.J. Brown is starting to feel more real than ever because the noise is no longer coming from random speculation. The closer we get to June 1st, the more the reports are stacking up, and now some of the biggest insiders around the league are doubling down on the idea that the Patriots are still the overwhelming favorite to land A.J. Brown in a blockbuster trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. And what makes this situation even more interesting is that there are now completely different timelines being discussed behind the scenes. Some insiders believe this deal could happen immediately after June 1st, while others think the Eagles could drag this thing into July. But the important part here is that despite all the rumors connecting other teams, the Patriots continue to be the one franchise consistently tied to Brown. One of the first major updates came from Mike Garofalo, who reported that the Patriots are still likely to land A.J. Brown, but he also added that talks may need to be rebooted because nothing has officially been finalized yet. He even mentioned the possibility that the trade might not happen right away and could extend into mid-July. And honestly, for Patriots fans, that is probably the most frustrating part of this entire situation because everybody is exhausted from waiting. This has become one of the biggest storylines surrounding the team, and every single day feels like another countdown toward June 1st. Then things got even crazier when more teams started getting mentioned in the rumors. There was speculation involving the Jacksonville Jaguars after reports surfaced suggesting they could be a potential fit for Brown. The idea was built around Jacksonville needing another veteran receiver presence, especially with questions surrounding the development of their younger players. But even that report quickly got pushed aside by people close to the Jaguars, who apparently viewed the speculation as completely unrealistic. At the same time, the Kansas City Chiefs also resurfaced in conversations after the latest Rashee Rice situation. Rice reportedly violated probation and is expected to serve jail time while also dealing with knee surgery recovery, which immediately caused people around the league to wonder if Kansas City would revisit their previous interest in Brown. But according to Albert Breer, the Chiefs are not expected to pursue a trade for him despite the uncertainty surrounding Rice. And this is where the entire situation starts pointing directly back toward New England again. Because after all the rumors, all the speculation, and all the smoke around other teams, Adam Schefter came out and completely shut the door on almost every alternative scenario. During his podcast appearance, Schefter made it clear that he still fully believes A.J. Brown will be traded and that the Patriots remain the clear favorite to land him. Not just one of the contenders, not one team among many. He specifically described New England as the faraway league contender to complete the deal. That statement alone completely changed the energy around this story again. Schefter basically dismissed the idea that these other teams are truly serious players in the race. According to him, many franchises already had opportunities throughout the offseason to make something happen, and yet the Patriots are still the organization sitting at the center of these conversations. He also emphasized that he expects the trade to happen either on June 1st or shortly after that date, which only increases the anticipation surrounding the next couple of weeks. And if you really think about it, this would completely reshape the Patriots offense overnight, because now imagine Drake Maye entering the season with a legitimate superstar receiver like A.J. Brown added into the offense alongside the younger weapons already developing on the roster. Suddenly, the entire perception of this team changes. Defenses would no longer be able to focus on one area of the field, and it would open up opportunities for the younger receivers to grow into more dangerous roles. One player who could benefit massively from this situation is Kyle Williams. And honestly, there is a growing belief internally that Kyle Williams could become one of the biggest breakout players on the Patriots roster in 2026. Last season, the raw numbers were not eye-popping. He finished with only 10 catches, but when you watch the games closely, you could clearly see flashes of something bigger developing. His average of 20.9 yards per catch showed exactly what kind of deep threat ability he brings to this offense. Every time Drake Maye looked downfield toward Williams, there was always the possibility of a huge play happening. The chemistry between Maye and Williams was inconsistent at times during the rookie season, but that is normal for young players learning together in a new offense. What stands out more is the talent itself, the speed, the explosiveness, the ability to track deep balls over his shoulder. Those moments were there all season long. Now Williams is entering his second year with much more confidence. He recently said that the difference between his rookie version and the player he is now will be night and day. He talked about learning from veteran players around him, learning from the coaching staff, and understanding the speed of the NFL much better now than he did a year ago. He also revealed that he added 5 pounds of muscle during the offseason, which becomes extremely important when you combine added strength with the speed he already possesses. That combination could turn him into a serious weapon for New England. Mike Vrabel also spoke very highly about Williams recently, praising his ability to adjust to deep throws, create explosive plays after the catch, and consistently show a strong attitude throughout the season. Vrabel stopped short of calling him a future #1 receiver, but he made it very clear that the Patriots believe there is a lot more potential waiting to be unlocked. And honestly, if A.J. Brown actually arrives in New England, that could create the perfect situation for Williams to explode. Instead of carrying pressure as a primary option, he could attack defenses as a third receiver against weaker matchups. That is where dangerous young receivers suddenly become game changers. The Patriots are getting closer to a moment that could completely change the direction of this offense, and now it feels like the waiting game is entering its final stage. But the biggest question is whether the Eagles truly go through with the move once June 1st finally arrives. So if this trade actually happens and A.J. Brown becomes a Patriot, how dangerous do you think this offense could become with Drake Maye, Kyle Williams, and Brown all together on the field? And the scary part for the rest of the AFC is that this might only be the beginning of what the Patriots are trying to build around Drake Maye. Because when you really step back and look at the direction of this roster, you can see exactly why so many people around the league believe New England is preparing for a major jump this season. Everything suddenly starts making sense if the Patriots truly believe they are one elite receiver away from changing the entire identity of this offense. And that is exactly why the A.J. Brown rumors refuse to die. The closer this team gets to June 1st, the louder the confidence becomes from people who continue insisting that New England is still in the driver's seat. Adam Schefter doubling down was not a small detail. Around the NFL, when Schefter speaks with that level of confidence on a trade situation, fans pay attention for a reason, especially when he specifically said that other teams have already had opportunities throughout the offseason and the Patriots still remain the most likely landing spot. That tells you there is probably a lot more happening behind the scenes than fans realize right now. And honestly, from the Patriots' perspective, the timing could not make more sense, because this offense desperately needs a true alpha receiver for Drake Maye. Last season, there were too many moments where Maye showed flashes of franchise quarterback talent, but the offense simply did not have enough firepower around him consistently. There were explosive moments, there were flashes from younger players, but there was never that one dominant receiver who completely changed how defenses lined up against New England. A.J. Brown changes all of that immediately. You are talking about one of the most physical receivers in football, a player who can dominate contested catches, destroy defenses after the catch, and completely shift coverage schemes the second he steps onto the field. Suddenly, Drake Maye is no longer trying to develop with an incomplete group around him. Instead, he would have a legitimate superstar target who can take pressure off everybody else in the offense. And that is where the rest of the receiver room becomes extremely interesting, because while all the attention has been focused on Brown, there is clearly growing excitement inside the organization about Kyle Williams taking a major leap forward this year. The Patriots coaching staff seems to genuinely believe his rookie season only scratched the surface of what he can become. The numbers may not jump off the page immediately, but every Patriots fan who watched closely remembers those flashes. The deep routes, the acceleration after the catch, the ability to separate vertically. Those are traits you simply cannot teach. And when you combine natural speed with another offseason of development, that is when young receivers suddenly become breakout stars. Williams himself seems extremely confident heading into year 2. He openly admitted that his rookie season had ups and downs, but he also made it clear that he learned a tremendous amount from the veterans around him and from the coaching staff. Adding muscle this offseason only adds another layer to the conversation, because now the Patriots are hoping he can become more durable, more physical, and even more explosive in traffic. And maybe the biggest thing working in his favor is continuity with Drake Maye. Young quarterbacks and young receivers often need time before the chemistry fully clicks. There were moments last season where Maye and Williams clearly were not completely synchronized yet, especially on timing routes and certain deep concepts. But now they enter another offseason together, understanding the offense better, understanding each other better, and knowing exactly what adjustments need to happen moving forward. That could become a huge factor this year. Mike Vrabel's comments about Williams were also incredibly telling. Coaches do not randomly praise young receivers unless they truly believe there is something there worth developing. Vrabel specifically specifically highlighted Williams' release skills, his ability to adjust downfield, and his explosiveness after the catch. Those are major compliments coming from a head coach who clearly values toughness and playmaking ability. And if you really think about the potential structure of this offense if the A.J. Brown trade happens, it starts looking dangerous fast. Brown as the dominant number 1 option, Romeo Doubs bringing another reliable outside presence, Kyle Williams attacking defenses as a speed weapon and vertical threat. That suddenly becomes a much deeper receiver room than people expected New England to have entering this offseason. And it also changes the pressure on Drake Maye in a very positive way. Instead of forcing difficult throws into tight windows all game, Maye would suddenly have multiple legitimate weapons capable of creating separation and generating explosive plays. That is how young quarterbacks accelerate their development. That is how offenses suddenly go from average to dangerous. What also stands out is how confident people around the Patriots seem when discussing the future of this offense. There is no panic surrounding Williams anymore. There is excitement. There is belief that his second season could look completely different from his rookie year. And honestly, if the Patriots truly pull off the A.J. Brown trade shortly after June 1st, like Schefter continues predicting, this entire conversation around New England changes instantly across the NFL. Because right now, many people still view the Patriots as a team building for the future, but adding a player like Brown would send a completely different message. It would tell the league that New England believes the future is arriving much faster than people expected. It would tell fans that the organization believes Drake Maye is ready for a major leap, and it would tell every defense on the Patriots' schedule that this offense may finally have the firepower to become a serious problem again. The countdown toward June 1st is getting shorter every single day, and the pressure surrounding this situation is only growing louder. If the trade finally becomes official, it could end up being one of the defining moments of the Patriots offseason, and possibly the move that changes the trajectory of the franchise moving forward. But now the biggest question becomes this: if the Patriots really land AJ, Brown and Kyle Williams takes the break